All right, good afternoon. Thank all of you for joining us today for this roundtable on the physical fitness of the U.S. military. Today's roundtable is a little different from the typical hearing. Today's conversation will be informal. We will not keep time, and I will not be recognizing members to speak as we typically do with hearings. We will instead hear from our participants when they introduce themselves and provide brief opening remarks. During their remarks, any member may engage and ask the panelists questions as we would during any briefing. While I don't expect it to be an issue, I will do my best to ensure all members have a chance to ask questions. Members may, of course, follow up separately with our participants if there are questions or requests that were not addressed during the presentations. I'm now pleased to introduce our two roundtable participants here with us this afternoon. Dr. Chris Shore is the Director of the Higher Education Reform Initiative at America First Policy Institute, or AFPI. Dr. Shore is a Marine Corps veteran of the Iraq War and supported the Defense Health Board, a Department of War Federal Advisory Committee prior to joining AFPI. Dr. Shore's knowledge and passion about the issue of military physical fitness, particularly as a former Marine, brings a unique perspective to today's discussion. We also have with us retired U.S. Marine Corps Major Jay Antonelli, Senior Associate Athletic Director and Director of the Physical Education Department at the U.S. Naval Academy. Major Antonelli is a graduate of the Academy and served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 20 years. He has a master's degree in exercise fitness and health promotion. He currently runs physical training for incoming midshipmen going into the Naval Academy. I note that Major Antonelli is here today in his personal capacity and not as a representative of the U.S. Naval Academy. As we consider the future of U.S. military fitness, I want to emphasize my support for the importance of maintaining the physical readiness of our soldiers and generals, echoing Secretary Hegseth's comments last fall about troop fitness levels. He stated, and I quote, "Our warfighters are entitled to be led by the best and most capable leaders." Secretary Hegseth said this to hundreds of admirals and generals in Quantico last year. He further added, quote, "We have a sacred duty to ensure that our warriors are led by the most capable and qualified combat leaders." I couldn't agree more. Our national security depends on a force that is not only technologically advanced, but also physically prepared to meet any challenge. Key issues that deserve our attention and discussion include updating fitness standards to reflect the demands of modern warfare, ensuring equitable access to training resources, and investing in programs that support both physical and mental resilience. It is essential that any policy changes we pursue should strengthen the effectiveness and well-being of our military personnel so they can continue to serve at the highest level. A strong, prepared fighting force remains the foundation of our national defense and the freedoms it protects. I look forward to an interesting dialogue today, and before I ask the participants to briefly introduce themselves, I want to turn to Representative Subramaniam, our ranking member, for any remarks he may wish to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for our witnesses for being here today. And thank you for clarifying that this is a round table. I'm going to lodge my complaint that the ranking member lodged earlier, which is that I believe we should be having real hearings where our witnesses are under oath. Not that we don't trust you, but I think that one of the great parts of having Congress is that you can swear in witnesses so you know what you're getting is the truth, or else there'll be consequences for that. And then you can also raise issues related to the committee as well, like subpoenas and people not showing up for subpoenas like the Attorney General did not, and what sort of consequences there should be for that. So I can't help but think this is coincidental that we've moved away from hearings altogether, and then we're moving to roundtables where we can't bring up motions like that, or bring up issues like this, or have a conversation where people are sworn in. So I'll leave that there. And turning to today's topic, look, the men and women in uniform, they are amazing. They're the most capable fighting force in history. We want the best. We want people prepared. We want to make sure they meet fitness standards, but we want to make sure those fitness standards are evidence-based. And I know that there's been a lot of work done up until even this administration to think about what that means. But for me, certainly want to make sure that when someone goes into combat, that they can trust the people they're with, that those people are ready for the task at hand, and they are disciplined and meet fitness standards. But we want as broad a pool of eligible talent as possible as well, because the future of warfare and the current warfare landscape is not just about going in and being able to do combat, but also cybersecurity, intelligence, logistics. There's so many other tasks, and I believe 70% of Americans wouldn't be able to pass the fitness standards currently. I wonder if we're missing out on some of them, and so I'd love to hear more about what exceptions we make if someone has, let's say, is talented in a certain role that may not require physical fitness. I'd love to hear, how women in uniform play a role here, whether we're missing out on more eligible and talented women who can join our armed forces. I don't want to be able to, and same with other types of situations. I want to make sure that we're having the broadest pool of talent possible. And so I'd love to have this conversation today and hear from our witnesses about that. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Antonelli.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Jay Antonelli. I am here on my own personal capacity. My views and expressions are my own and not reflected of the United States Naval Academy, the U.S. Navy, or the Department of the Navy. I am a graduate from the United States Naval Academy, a retired Marine Corps major with 20 years of active service, and I currently serve as the Director of Physical Education at the Naval Academy. I hold a doctoral degree in athletic administration, and I have coached athletes at every level, from the beginners to Olympians, including serving as an Olympic wrestling coach. I've spent my career in one business, building people who can perform, lead, and endure under pressure. Let me be clear from the outset, physical readiness is not optional. It is not outdated. It is a non-negotiable requirement for an effective military force. There is a growing argument that because warfare is becoming more technological, that physical fitness matters less. That argument is fundamentally flawed. Technology does not lead troops. Technology does not carry a wounded Marine, move under load, or endure prolonged hardships. People do that, and those people must be physically prepared. Physical training is one of the most reliable ways we build discipline. It creates accountability, it reinforces standards, and it develops the mental toughness required to operate in chaos. These are not side benefits. These are part of the foundations of leadership. From my time spent attending and working at the Naval Academy, I do not believe that physical education is a check-in-the-box requirement. It is a deliberate, structured component of leader development. We use physical training, combatives, and competitive athletics to create officers who are resilient, confident, and capable from leading from the front. When we weaken physical standards, we do not just reduce fitness, we erode discipline, we dilute accountability, and we send a message that standards are now negotiable. This is a dangerous message in a profession where lives depend upon our performance. There is also a hard reality that we cannot ignore. The population that we are recruiting is becoming less physically prepared. Young Americans today are more sedentary than ever. Many are arriving with lower fitness standards, which puts them at a higher injury risk and less exposure to physical challenges. If we respond to that trend by lowering standards, we are not solving the problem, we are now accelerating it. We should be doing the exact opposite. We should be reinforcing standards, investing in physical development, and treating fitness as a national readiness issue. The data supports this. Two of the strongest predictors of long-term health and lifespan are VO2 max and grip strength. Both are directly improved through consistent physical training. A fitter force is not only more lethal and more resilient, but it's also less costly over time due to reduced injuries and lower long-term healthcare burdens. This is not theoretical, this is measurable, and it directly impacts readiness and costs. Standards are a reflection of what we value. If we value readiness, if we value leadership, and if we value mission accomplishment, then we must hold the line on physical standards. In closing, physical readiness is not a legacy concept, it is a strategic necessity. We can modernize equipment, we can advance technology, but we cannot afford to lower the human standard. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our service members. I look forward to any follow-on questions.
Thank you for your initial remarks. Dr. Shore, please.
Good afternoon. This is on. I have the same problem. Yep. It's
barely
faint, but you'll
see
see
it.
the light. Yeah.
Wait till it turns on. Good afternoon.
Just touch it barely. There we go.
Testing. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Timmons, Ranking Member Subramaniam. Thank you for convening this discussion. I'm grateful for your leadership on this important topic and for the opportunity to contribute to the committee's discussion of it. My name is Chris Shore. I serve as the Director of the Higher Education Reform Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. I'm here to register AFPI's support for Secretary Hegseth's efforts to reform military standards to maximize merit and ensure mission accomplishment. Many Americans join the military for a single enlistment. I was one of them. I enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves in 2003 on the eve of the Iraq War, planning to pursue a career outside the military. However, many other Americans join with the intention to pursue a career in the military, in some cases lasting 20 years or more. This is, of course, laudable, and so it is both reasonable and appropriate for policymakers to want to ensure ample opportunities exist for such individuals to succeed. This includes progressing through the military rank structure. Additionally, we as Americans believe in equal treatment under law and in public life. So again, it is appropriate that concerns should be raised regarding standards that have the effect of narrowing opportunities for some individuals while leaving those same opportunities open for others. However, the military does not exist to provide for such opportunities. Rather, such opportunities exist within the military only insofar as they advance the mission of the military, which is defending the American people from foreign threats. The military's ability to achieve this mission must never be compromised. And given civilian control of the military, which is both essential and uncontested in the American tradition, it follows that policymakers must never impose conditions on the military that could prevent it from accomplishing its mission. Any weakening of merit-based standards prevents the military from accomplishing its mission. The saying a chain is only as strong as its weakest link is particularly applicable in military contexts where, for example, a unit moves at the pace of its slowest member. Any introduction of non-merit-based criteria likewise prevents the military from accomplishing its mission. All such actions increase the likelihood of mission failure and preventable loss of life. All such actions therefore break faith with the men and women who risk their lives to defend our country, with their families who entrust their lives to our care, and with the American people who rightly expect their government to competently safeguard their nation and those who defend it. This is the context for Secretary Hegseth's recent announcements concerning weight and fitness standards. This is also the context for the Secretary's previous comments and actions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and women in ground combat. All actions taken to maintain or raise standards exclude people. There's no getting around this simple truth. Nor, if we are honest, can we fully square the character of the military as an institution with our democratic culture. The military is a fundamentally undemocratic institution. It is a pre-modern institution. It operates according to a logic that many modern, small d democratic citizens will understandably find alien and unsettling. We Americans value personal freedom. The military constrains personal freedom and suppresses individuality to achieve common objectives under extreme conditions. We Americans are uniquely egalitarian in some respects. The military is inherently hierarchical and exclusive. A Marine who cannot carry his or her 200-pound wounded buddy and their 65-pound combat load off the field to safety is not fit for ground combat. The fact that the military remains no less essential today than in centuries past presents all of us with an uncomfortable reminder that there are aspects of our modern values and cultural expectations that are simply out of sync with reality, or at least with that portion of reality where the military lives and operates. The continued success of the U.S. military requires the American people and their elected leaders to recognize that the military must remain insulated from ideological fads. It must even be insulated to some degree from our fundamental commitments, for example, to liberty and equality, commitments that are essential in other contexts. The business of war, of killing people and breaking things, demands unyielding commitment to standards of excellence. The America First Policy Institute commends Secretary Hegseth for his leadership in restoring these standards. Thank you. I welcome your comments.
Thank you for that. I'll start it off with the initial question. Mr. Antonelli, it seems that each service branch keeps changing their physical fitness standards. And it's concerning to me in part because they seem to be getting easier. What are your thoughts about that, and does that concern you?
Thank you, Chairman, for your question. I think, in my personal opinion, I know one standard has not changed much, and that's the Marine Corps, and that's what I am familiar with, and they got it right. The Marine Corps has it right, and we've stayed by our ways. I think we've made slight adjustments, but in some ways, like we were talking earlier, you did do more pull-ups now than you had to do before. So I believe other, in my opinion, other services did make some changes to their physical fitness tests, and that did happen.
Would you say it's because of readiness? And I guess the Marine Corps did make changes. It's pull-ups or push-ups now. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think in the Marine Corps, they're still frowning on the push-ups.
Okay. Dr. Shore, do you have any thoughts on that? Is it fair to say that other services have been relaxing their fitness standards?
Well, I would echo, I'm still on, I would echo what the Major said about familiarity specifically with the Marine Corps in my case as well, and the high bar that the Marine Corps prides itself on setting. I can say that the push towards relaxing standards has different causes. One of them is the concerns that you express about the quality, the fitness level that young people are showing up to the services with. I do think there, particularly during the last administration, there was an effort to make the military representative in ways that you can do if you emphasize things other than fitness. And I think I think that is fundamentally mistaken because, to extend the broken chain analogy, if the person who is in a position that they're less qualified for being in, to be in the person who's in a position that maybe they shouldn't be in because they don't meet the standards, they might get themselves killed, they might get another Marine, in this case, soldier, sailor, airman, killed, at which point the representation is counted among the dead. So I think that, just to echo my previous comments about merit, I think that that's really the only consideration that we should be making in this case.
I can keep going. Who else has questions?
Yeah, thank you for being here, gentlemen. As it relates to readiness and lethality, speak to, if you will, the association between fitness as a national security imperative versus fitness, like culturally within the services and even individual units or teams as a personal goal. So we seem to have established over the course of decades a variance of standards, all we could argue are high, Marine Corps, Army, et cetera, in initial training. And then it's like a matter of personal focus and personal discipline, or maybe unit discipline and pride. And in my humble opinion, as an old Army guy, I think you have to drive these standards. They have high bar initial standards, and then drive that as a matter of national security and readiness and lethality into the unit level and force it into the personal soldiers or Marines or daily lifestyle. So would you speak to how we're doing that right now?
As a Marine, and in my personal opinion, I'm going to echo what I said before, the culture in the Marine Corps is about physical fitness. And we understand that it takes discipline and sacrifice to do hard things. And if you get accustomed to doing hard things and getting comfortable being uncomfortable, you start excelling in a world of chaos. And that's what battle is.
Now, Roger that. The Army just seems to have, I mean, it's just been unbelievable to observe. It's some old soldiers, you know, long ETS. We see soldiers in uniform that are clearly not in good shape. I'm trying to be polite, but I look at a buddy of mine, old soldier, going, "What the hell, man? I'm 65. I'm staying in the gym. These guys are still in uniform. What's going on in the Army?" So, can you speak to that service-wide, and then I'll yield.
I'm sorry, I cannot comment about, I have no opinion about the Army and how they run their physical fitness. Thank you.
I want to start by saying thank you guys for coming today. I agreed with everything you said, Major. I've been watching the military like you guys have for the last several years since I got out, and I've been pretty disappointed to see standards lacking and our service members not meeting the standards, and even leaders within the military not upholding standards. And it's interesting because I say that as a guy who dropped out of school, college, my senior year, the week after 9/11, and went to SEAL training. And I did not meet the standards the first time I went. And I actually made it through Hell Week, which was our hardest part of training, and then I was performance dropped a week and a half later. And that was a tough pill for me to swallow. And I remember I went to an academic review board where they said, "Young man, you're obviously tough, but you're not meeting the standards. You failed to run, you have failed to swim, you have failed an O course, and we want the best of the best here, and you're not meeting up to it." So I had to go out to the fleet for 2.5 years. And you know what? I got a chance to come back and complete SEAL training, and then did 3 combat deployments with SEAL Team 3. And you know what? I'm glad that they didn't let me pass, because I want that organization to be the best fighting organization on the planet. And that's one thing that I respect about the Marine Corps. I've got a little brother who's a Marine, went to the Naval Academy, flew Cobras and Super Cobras, and I hope we do our job as lawmakers in making sure that these standards remain high. And I don't care that we're moving towards a more technologically based military. What you said, Major, and what you said, Dr. Shore, is absolutely true. There are going to be things that technology and machines just cannot do. And having higher physical fitness standards really do equate to how you react and the amount of stress that you can handle in combat. And not because I want to make this partisan, but I listened to my colleague, Mr. Subramania, say, he quoted in his opening statement, "We want the most capable people." That has not been the case. I have a memorandum right here by the, from the Air Force. This is Washington, D.C., Department of the Air Force, the 9th of August, 2022. And it starts off, "Diversity and inclusion are an essential part of our society and key to the success of any organization. As such, it is imperative that the composition of our military services better reflect our nation's highly talented, diverse, and eligible population," which mirror some of the things that my colleague said. This memorandum updates Department of the Air Force officer applicant pool goals broken down by race, ethnicity, and gender. Critically, it also continues our progress towards achieving a force more representative of our nation while leveraging that diversity to enhance the Air and Space Force ability to deter and, if necessary, deny our nation's competitors. And then it goes through and gives the percentages of officers they want who are white, Black, Asian, Native American, Hispanic, Latino, and so on and so forth. And then in this next chapter, you are directed to develop a diversity and inclusion outreach plan aimed at achieving these goals no later than 30 September 2022. In addition, you will report annually on your progress outlining those initiatives your organizations are undertaking to enhance officer Applicant pool diversity and inclusion. Here's the bottom line. One thing I loved about the military was just being able to be brothers with guys and gals from all over the country. Most of us did not care what color you were, who you prayed to. All we cared about is, are you on this team and will you give it your best or not? But when you start making percentages based on ethnicity and you bring in diversity, equity, and inclusion, everybody at this table who has actually done the job and done the job for real know that it's not about who the most capable person is anymore. And that does weaken our military, and it weakens our ability to actually defend this country. And so I hope the military continues its proud tradition of meritocracy and making sure that the standards are upheld and that the best of the best, regardless of what their color, where they came from, or who they pray to, continue to be elevated, and that system is defended. Because if we have some very serious adversaries around the world, and they don't play any of these social games because they know that it degrades lethality. And so I wanted to say that. I also wanted to thank you, gentlemen, for your service to this country and your continued mission to make sure that these standards are upheld. And I also want to thank President Trump by nominating Secretary Hegseth, who's obviously received a ton of criticism, but who is getting this right. And he is making sure that this is an absolute priority of our military and this administration. Thank you, and I yield back.
I think we can all agree that we're moving in the right direction, and there's a lot of work that remains to be done or undone from the previous administration. McGuire, you have thoughts?
Can I make this thing work? Is it like going to come on? Test, test. Test.
Got it.
All right, I think we got it. A little teamwork. Hey, I don't think I could echo the words of my fellow SEAL brother here, Eli Crane, and that we are proud of our military. I talked to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. He said, we have a problem in the Marine Corps right now. I said, what's the problem, Commandant? He said, we have more people wanting to be in the Marine Corps than we have room. You know, when I was in the SEAL teams, we worked out mandatory 2 hours a day, every day. And when we were deployed, the Marines were the only ones that would work out with us. So I always say you can never have enough Marines around. Right. So again, we really appreciate your service. You know, when I got out of the military, I started a fitness company. It's called SEAL Team PT. The PT stands for physical training, not part-time. And we do push-ups on kayaks, carry sandbags, all these different crazy things. We had a 320-pound mother lose 160 pounds, run a half marathon. We had 2 women go to the doctor because they thought they had a tumor, and the doctor said, ma'am, that's a muscle. But we also have helped young men become MARSOC and Army Special Forces and Rangers and pilots in all the different branches. 9 young men have become Navy SEALs out of the program. The last class had 175 men and buds, and only 1 original graduated their SQT class because we did teamwork, leadership, communication, and physical fitness as a package. And I think what Eli Crane said was great, and I think we'd all agree as veterans, is that I just got to commend Pete Hegseth, President Trump, and you guys for getting rid of the DEI stuff. I mean, it destroys innovation, destroys morale. And if somebody saved your life on the battlefield, you wouldn't care if they were male or female. You wouldn't care if they were black or white or Democrat, Republican, or independent. We are Americans. And it really is amazing what we can achieve when we put our differences aside, treat people with respect, and work as a team. Oftentimes, you can turn impossible to a possible, especially for special ops guys who are always behind enemy lines, always outnumbered. It's crystal clear how important that communication, teamwork, leadership, and physical fitness is. And I remember in my buds class, I was the smallest guy in the class. They used to punch me every day and say, we don't want small guys in the SEAL teams. And we had 200 men. And this big Samoan guy, y'all ever seen a Samoan guy with a head about this big? I'd hide behind a big guy like Eli, and he'd find me and punch me and say, we don't want small guys. And we went from 200 to 150 to 30. Only 19 of us graduated.
We don't want small guys.
But one of the things they had a tradition, I don't know if they still have in the teams, but we have this 8-foot sand berm, and you've got a fireman carry a guy up over that berm. And I had this guy, he looked like Arnold, just a huge guy from Texas. And I bet you, we don't have pictures back then, they didn't have all this social media stuff, but I bet you if you took a picture, all you saw was my feet. I mean, the guy was so big, and I had to fireman carry the guy up, and they were in my ear talking about my girlfriend and my mom and what wife. I didn't have a girl, I was a bandit, so I didn't have a mom or anything. They didn't know I wanted to whoop their tail, even though they were bigger than me. After about the 15th try, I just dug in deep, and I carried this guy who was way bigger than Eli up over this berm, and they left me alone the rest of the day. But the point is, it's not what you look like, it's what you fight like. But I'd like to hear, if you have it, are we standardizing anything across the whole military, or is the Marine Corps fitness standards totally different? But also, I'd like to talk about the positive effects of exercise and nutrition on the brain and performance as a leader. We've had people in our class come up to me and say that they used to take medication for depression for years, and now they take none. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
On the mental side of it, and this is all in my personal opinion. I've been training, athletes from beginners to Olympians, and there is nothing better than physical training to get in your mind straight. For example, me today, I did not want to be here. I just flat out, I don't feel comfortable, and I was like, why am I coming here? But I decided to do it because it's the hard thing to do. And what physical training will do is you have to make, listen, you do a rep of anything, you have to make a conscious decision to do an extra rep, even though it's the harder thing to do, and it's gonna hurt. Then you have to think morally, like, am I doing it correctly? Am I doing it the right form? Am I cheating it? You're putting yourself on test every time you do a rep, every extra yard that you run, you're challenging yourself mentally. So everything in life becomes a challenge. Everything you do. And then as you continue down that path, physical training transcends to all aspects of your life, where you just learn to work hard because that's what you do. You see a standard, you do something hard. You see something on the ground, a piece of trash, you pick it up, you put it in the garbage can. That's all related, because you're doing something that you're just out of your comfort zone. And so as far as setting discipline, physical training sets the tone for discipline. And that goes in all aspects of your life. And for the military, of course, it teaches you the standards, and you don't negotiate standards. And I cannot say that enough.
Well, we commend Pete Hegseth and what he's doing, and I'm just wondering what we in Congress can do to support the efforts.
Continue to support your troops. Continue to support all services. Encourage, people. Listen, you lower the bar far enough, you're going to trip over it, right? You set a high bar, and you go for it, right? If that's how you set, that's the mindset, because the human nature, it's got to get back to a competitive state. This is all in my opinion. If you put people in competition, they will exceed. If you challenge them, they will exceed the expectations. But if you lower that bar, they're just going to go right down to that lowest common denominator.
That's a good quote. Lower the bar too low, you trip
that.
over.
I love
That's
that.
pretty good.
So I'm just looking at all the different physical fitness tests for the different services, and it seems there's 3 commonalities. 1 is a run, 2 is a push-ups, 3 is a plank. We got rid of the crunches, we got plank now. I think, 1, our society's struggling with health generally and physical fitness and exercise, and there's an education component to that, I think, but I feel like the military's changing all of these tests, and every service branch, it's just duplication of effort. Why do we keep changing these things? Let's use the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps used to have only pull-ups, now it has pull-ups or push-ups, which is frowned upon, I'm sure. You used to have crunches, now it has plank, and you used to be able to kip your pull-ups, and now they're strict. So, I just feel like the Marine Corps was crushing it 20 years ago. Why are we changing things?
In my opinion, I think in some ways it's gotten harder. A strict pull-up is a lot harder than a kipping pull-up, for sure. The plank is struggle, and it's kind of an exercise that you could cause injury with your low back. And they found out that actually a plank is a better measurement of overall core strength rather than your hip flexors. So they went to a plank position. I cannot comment on the addition of push-ups.
Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I do think adding, so the pull-up obviously trains about half of your upper, it trains your rear delts, your lats. The push-up then brings in your chest muscles and your tris. So I don't think it's a bad idea to sort of have a more holistic capturing of upper body strength. I think that's fine. I think I would concur that the Marine Corps seems to be raising rather than lowering the bar, and I think in line with what we've been
Hold on, you
discussing.
think being able to do push-ups instead of pull-ups is
No,
raising
I think
the bar?
it's both. I think.
Oh, you can only do,
My understanding was it's both.
okay. So
Yeah.
it looks like it says or, but,
So,
okay.
yeah, that's a fair point.
Do you think it would make sense from like a society perspective if there was a base physical fitness test, maybe with different runs, for the entire military, and then if the Marines want to add pull-ups, or the Navy wants to add, well, just to kind of send a message that this is the metric, and then there might be other metrics, or there might be different metrics for different jobs, but I just feel like the amount of time that goes into people thinking about how to change these things, that, I mean, and they keep changing. I mean,
Right.
is there not a duplication of effort, and is it not kind of confusing enterprise-wide? Any thoughts?
In my opinion, I think it's a culture, and each service has their own culture, and I think it is important that we keep our individual cultures as different services. This is in my opinion. You could have a baseline run because everybody runs. I mean, every military in the world will run. So, but I believe that even if you said, if there was a standard of a 1 mile run that everybody decided on, the Marine Corps is going to make you do 3 because we want to do more. Right. So, and then there would be a scoring system based on your first mile. I'm not sure how that would work. I think it's good that the militaries are different. I think it is, in my opinion, I think it's important that we keep stressing and hold standards to a high level, and not everybody is going to make those standards. And I think that has to be an acceptable thing because lives depend upon it. And the training is important, not just physically, but just your mental well-being and understanding that people of same race or different races, different genders, they can all move the same rock when that rock is in the way.
And you're familiar with the Hammer, the run alternative that the Air Force has?
I am not familiar with that.
All right, it's actually kind of fun. It's not really hard, but it's a 20-meter shuttle run, and there's basically there's a YouTube recording where every time it beeps, you have to run, and if you miss you can miss 2 beeps in a row, but it's honestly really confusing, but it's not nearly as hard as just running 1.5 miles. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it seems that the different services are creating little games to get around just run a damn 1.5 miles. Like, I don't, run 3 miles, whatever. But do you think that it's concerning that some of the services are removing runs in exchange for shuttle runs? Do you think the Marine Corps should change the 3 mile shuttle run to the 3 mile run to a shuttle run option?
In my opinion, absolutely not.
Okay. Dr. Shore, do you think the Marine Corps should include a shuttle run as an option instead of a 3 mile run?
No, that doesn't seem very prudent. What I would add, though, to your original question is that the Secretary's memorandum defining the term, addresses some of the concerns that you've raised. So you have a combat field test, you have a combat readiness test, you have the service fitness test. So it's creating a degree of uniformity that I believe you're looking for, while still allowing for the service differentiation that I think makes sense in the context of maybe the Space Force and being different in some respects from the kind of work that Marines and SEALs are doing.
Eli, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, what's the general consensus? What's the general consensus right now in the service that you guys are observing as far as these new standards that have been set by the new administration? Is there a lot of bickering about it? Do you feel like it's motivating leaders and also the enlisted as well? Or do you hear a lot of griping and moaning about it?
In my opinion, it makes my job very easy because I work from where I currently work with and who I work with. I think that holding a standard and a high standard that I expect out of everybody to give 100% all the time, I think it's a welcomed.
And I agree with you, Major. I didn't want to come here today either, but here we are, man.
Yeah.
Let's shift back to this social experimentation that we were talking about earlier, as far as some of the comments that were made, and even from that memorandum from the Air Force, broadest pool of talent possible. And when you see, and I know you guys need to be careful while you're here today, but when you see us turn away from a meritocracy where the best man or the best woman for the job, regardless of quotas or percentages, is getting the job, but we're starting to go off of percentages of race. How do you feel that impacts the combat readiness of the Marine Corps and the entire military?
Well, if I may, to answer your question, and this relates to the previous question as well, the reassertion of high standards and the warrior ethos, which brings with it meritocracy as a replacement for the sort of bean counting, equity-based approaches, it seems to have solved the recruiting crisis that we were in the middle of. So one of the responses from the troops has been to actually join the military, which is, I think, a remarkable development, and it's directly counter to the argument that prioritizing inclusivity is the key to having the military of the future. It's, in fact, being select, being elite is what draws people in. It's the opposite of the DEI paradigm. I would also add, and I know we were talking a lot about the Marine Corps, but the Marine Corps, when I was in the Marine Corps, and I hope this is still the case, we weren't even allowed to refer to other Marines as white or black. We had light green and dark green. So the Marine Corps is the antithesis of the DEI approach in the sense that it is cramming down a single identity to the exclusion of all others. And it's from that identity that you build esprit de corps, and you create Marines who will go through extraordinary lengths for the man or woman next to them. So it disproves DEI, I think, and it's been disproving it since its inception.
Major, do you want to comment on that, or are you good?
I think the most, in my opinion, I look at it and I see recruiting numbers are now up, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I want to just tell a little story that kind of amplifies what you just said, Doctor. I worked with a pretty famous Navy SEAL, happened to be a black gentleman named David Goggins. Have you guys ever heard of David Goggins? Mm-hmm. So I worked with him for about 9 months in a shop called the NSW Recruiting Directorate, and it was wild. So our office was right above the SEAL grinder, the SEAL First Phase grinder. And there were 2 young men that had just been performance boarded that day in the current BUDS class. One of them was black and one of them was white. And they both had very similar scores. And the young man who happened to be black was allowed to go back with the class, and the young man that was white happened to be canned and had to go out to the fleet. And it infuriated David Goggins. He was furious. And you know why he was furious? He told us, he's like, if we start doing this and we start with all this social experimentation and we're keeping, different races of people and canning other people who have the same exact scores, it makes the rest of us that have wanted to be a part of this elite program and have worked our tails off, it makes us look bad. And that was something that will stick with me forever. And I mean, that guy was a physical specimen. He was a freak. I tried to run with him once or twice. It didn't go very well. But those are the types of things that I think are missed on a lot of people that are pushing for this diversity, equity, inclusion, that it actually ends up affecting, minorities that have gone through the program and gone through it when it was a meritocracy. And so I just wanted to, bring that up because I don't think a lot of people seen that or heard stories like that.
Dr. Short, President Trump brought back the presidential fitness test, and I think that was a good thing, at least bringing it back to the forefront. I mean, that's a 1 mile run, sit-ups for a minute, pull-ups, shuttle run, sit and reach. It seems that a lot of these things are generally aligned, but kind of making the military the tip of the spear, the Marine Corps the tip of the spear. I mean, do you think there's value in kind of any kind of potential alignment across the presidential fitness tests and the military physical fitness tests?
I do. I think that there is an urgent need to improve fitness in the general population, and I think anything that draws attention to that encourages it, is welcome. And I think it's a multi-dimensional problem. Some of it has to do with the food, and we're dealing with that. Secretary Kennedy is addressing that. But I do think that the fitness piece, the expression "touch grass" didn't exist when I was a kid because it wasn't a choice. Most of us were outside most of the day. The concern for development with young children used to be getting them to tie their shoes because that's a fine motor coordination. Today they play video games. There's not really a concern with fine motor coordination. What we're seeing is a decline in physical strength because of the sort of just lifestyle changes and technology and the rest of it. So I think that anything that can be done to encourage fitness more broadly, I think is welcome and will redound to the benefit of the military long term. Percentage of, there have been multiple reports starting with names like "too fat to fight" in 2010, "still too fat to fight" in 2012. These were actual DOD reports, DOD then, now DOW. We're looking at around 3/4 or higher of young Americans lack the fitness, the propensity. Some of them have drug or criminal arrest records. We have a vanishing population of young Americans who can serve, and so I think this is an important piece of that.
It's just very interesting. I mean, one of the components of the Air Force physical fitness test is getting tape measured around your navel, and that shouldn't be a problem. Major Antonelli, you're at the Naval Academy, and 1,000-ish graduate every year, maybe less, 900. What, 15, 20% of them going to the Marine Corps?
About 20% go in the Marine Corps.
How do you create a physical fitness curriculum for all the midshipmen when only 20% of them are going to be tested on pull-ups? How do you deal with that?
Well, we have one standard at the Naval Academy, and I think that we train to that one standard. And
Which is the Navy test?
No.
Oh,
We have our own. We have the Naval Academy. We have our own physical fitness test.
okay.
We always said that we're going to be harder than everything out in the fleet, and so it has always been harder than.
What is the Naval Academy physical fitness test? What does it include?
It includes a run, a plank, and it includes push-ups.
Okay.
Push-ups are done differently. The run times are much more than fleet standards. We're harder.
Do y'all do hand release push-ups, or is it break 90 degrees, chest to deck, or what?
It's up until a couple of years ago, it was cadence push-ups on a 2-second cadence. Had to hit a shoe every time. Now it's push-ups as in the fleet, but we are changing, it looks like.
To hand release, or?
No, back to cadence push-ups.
Okay, interesting. Do y'all have any final thoughts? It seems like we're closing up here.
Well, I think, I guess I'll go first. I think that momentum is moving in the right direction. I think the unwinding of DEI, of the sort of rights-based, sort of entitlement-based approach to service, the notion that representation or career progression are worthy ends in and of themselves for the military to consider, or perhaps to counterbalance against lethality and fitness and mission accomplishment. we're getting away from that, and I think that's incredibly gratifying. You asked earlier, or someone asked earlier, what Congress can do. I think Congress can codify as many of these requirements as possible into law, potentially in the next NDAA. I mean, I think that having a requiring that the services separately test service fitness and combat fitness, and that the latter be on a sex-neutral, so non-sex norm standard, I think would be a prudent thing for Congress to look at. Among others, I certainly think prohibiting DEI in statute in all forms. We mostly discuss the aspect of DEI that's traditionally thought of as affirmative action, essentially quotas and balancing, but there's the other aspect of DEI, which is the essentially critical race theory indoctrination, which is sort of internal promotion of disunity. That would also be something Congress should look at, I think, prohibiting. But it was a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to speak to you, and thank you for the questions.
In closing, again, this is my personal opinion. I do believe that as a country, we are at a time of we need to get fitness back into the schools, starting at a young age, and we need to indoctrinate people early in a lifestyle of physical culture. I think that's important as a nation, and it'll only serve us better for those who end up having the opportunity to serve, because it is a great honor to serve this country, and I strongly feel that it makes people more disciplined, and the mindset changes when you're physically fit. I've always said hard bodies sharpen minds.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. I guess I'll end with this. We all watched as the military recovered our downed pilot, and he had to climb 1.3 miles, 7,000 feet to get to where he was rescued from. So it doesn't matter how much technology you're relying on, physical fitness will always matter, and it can often be the difference between life and death. So again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate everybody's attendance, and with that, we'll call it a day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.